Alright, good evening everybody. Last video for the night. So do my usual pointing, clicking, and I come across Mr. Powell's video. I'm not talking about him or his views on the video. I'm talking about the woman in his video, in her views on, what marriage is. And, to be fair, in, the traditional marriage sense, she's actually right. Husband and wife belong to each other spiritually, become one. Now, the first point that she was making, that he put his 2 cents on, as far as, watching porn, is that cheating? Especially if you watch it together. I don't think that's fucking cheating, I mean, hell, I'm sure lots of fucking couples, watch it so they can, find new positions to try. No harm, no foul. They fuck to it. No harm, no foul. So in the spiritual sense, yeah, she's not wrong in that. But in the whole property sense, when you take it literally to the physical, that's where it becomes a problem. And I think a lot of people are going to be, they're going to get on a flashback. I think she's almost like the female version of that kickboxer influencer type who I don't want to say the name of. One belongs to the man. The man says to do something, you do it. You're not in the mood, and to be fair, when one denies the other for whatever reason, and to be honest, in today's world, marriage has become disposable, and people deny each other for affection for the stupidest shit. I will disagree with. Well, no, I'm not going to totally disagree with Mr. Powell on his response to her, as far as taking care of yourselves and looking good. What I will say is she, the woman in his video, is taking it too far. Yeah, you want to look good, you want to be healthy. You don't want to become like the fucking Stepford Wives. I watched that movie, but just because you get married, I see this a lot. Like the funny memes. I'm getting married now. I can't wait to get fat. You know what I mean? But there's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself. But what she's describing, the woman in his video, what she's describing is fucking going way too far. The way she presents herself, she's all dolled up with makeup and all that shit. Do you really have to go do that all the fucking time? And we know we're going to get older. We know our body's going to change. Blah, blah, blah. But, there's a fine line between, letting yourselves go and really letting yourselves go. And, if you fucking let yourself go and then your spouse, and this is true either direction, one lets themselves go and their spouse starts looking, elsewhere, they're going to do it anyways. They're going to fucking do it anyways. They're going to be sitting next to you, flipping through their phone, looking at all these girls on, like, Tinder or fucking OnlyFans and doing that. And, obviously I'll use the classic example, husband says to the wife, every time you're married, you put on this weight, you used to look good, I'll use that classic example. And, ironically, a lot of times when the husband says that, he becomes nothing too impressive to look at either. So go fucking figure, But one point I'll give to that woman is, her parents still go to. I'm taking her word for it. I'm just going to take her word for it that her parents will go to the gym and they take care of themselves. So I'm just going to take her word for it on that. No harm, no foul in doing that. And hell, we could become swole mates. You know what I mean? But the one issue, and I'll agree with Mr. Powell on this one 100%. You know, it's not okay to, you know, grape somebody just because, you know, they're not in the mood. That's never okay. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, those are sometimes, you know, the hardest to prove. You know, much like a lot of sex offenses, you know, they result in like what, a fucking 3% conviction rate. But anyhow, enough about that. No, you don't. You're not always going to get your way, and life is going to happen. You know, let's just assume that you're going to get married for the sole purpose of having kids. Not everybody does that. Some people just marry just to be married, and that's fine. You know, but you know, or conversely, you know, one of the spouses or both of the spouses' equipment don't work properly. You know, to where the trans people latch on and be like, well, what if someone has some genetic disorder? Does that mean she's less of a woman? That's a fucking biological anomaly. But enough about that. The point is, um, no, the spiritual belonging, the union part, you know, I agree with, but everything else she's saying is just way out of whack. And you know, you don't have to remarry. You know, you be a couple. You know, and you should be a faithful couple. And you know, unfortunately, you know, this is why dating has gotten so brutal over the past 20 fucking years. Especially, you know, with the fucking digital age. You know, if someone's unhappy, they're not gonna communicate. You know, they're just gonna cheat anyways. You know, whether you take care of yourself or let yourself go. You know, if someone's gonna do it, they're gonna do it. You know, they're gonna look elsewhere. I mean, hell, you know, maybe she could, you know, be married to somebody, and if he's not upholding his end of the bargain, you know, she's probably going to look elsewhere too. So, no, the one thing the definite thing I disagree with, you know, from the woman in his video, you know, it's not a matter of being someone's property. You know, they don't own you like that. That's why there is this thing called divorce. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the divorce rate here is so fucking high, but you get my point. You know, so yeah. You know, I think the woman that he is talking about definitely should be evaluated, you know, based on some of her views alone. Anyhow, I'll talk to you.